In the small, quiet town of Gori, where the sun baked the red earth and the scent of cooking jollof rice filled the evening air, lived the Kure family. Their home was a simple, happy one. Papa Kure was a strong man who worked hard, and Mama Kure was the heart of the home, a woman whose laughter was as warm as the soup she served. They had 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, but from the very beginning, there was something special about the bond between the eldest son Samuel and his younger sister Halima. To everyone in the neighborhood, they were just close siblings. When Mama Kure shared out a plate of fried plantain, Samuel would always make sure Halima got the sweetest, softest pieces. When it was time for school, he would hold her hand, walking slowly so her small legs could keep up. If any of the other children teased Halima, they would have to face Samuel, whose gentle face would turn as serious as a village elder's. They were like 2 peas in one pod. They shared everything, not just food or the small room they sometimes had to sleep in when relatives visited, but their secrets, their dreams, and their fears. While their other siblings, Tunde and Aisha, played their own games, Samuel and Halima were in their own world. They would sit under the big mango tree in the yard for hours, talking about nothing and everything. Samuel would tell her stories of becoming a great man, and Halima would listen, her eyes wide with belief, telling him she would be right there beside him. "You two," Mama Kure would sometimes say, shaking her head with a smile. "You act like you are tied together with one rope. What will happen when you grow up and must go your separate ways?" Samuel would just pull Halima closer and say, "That will never happen, Mama. Wherever I go, Halima will go too." And Halima would nod, her small head bouncing. "Yes, Mama, forever." Their love was pure and simple, the way a child's love is. But as the years passed, as they grew from small children into young adults, something began to change. The sun still rose and set over Gwari, but the feelings in their hearts were slowly, quietly transforming. It was a change so gradual that, for Halima, the change came during a local football match. Samuel was playing, and he was a good player. He was fast and strong. When he scored a goal, all the young girls in the crowd cheered for him. Halima felt a sharp, painful sting in her heart. It was jealousy. She did not want those girls looking at her Samuel. He was her brother, her protector, her best friend. In that moment, she realized her feelings for him were deeper and more complicated than simple sisterly love. She wanted to be the only girl in his world. They never spoke of these new feelings. How could they? They were brother and sister. The world they knew, the teachings of their parents, the whispers of the neighbors, and the laws of God and man all said that such feelings were wrong. They were a taboo, a thing so forbidden it was not even to be thought of. So they kept their feelings locked away, deep inside, like a precious but dangerous secret. But secrets of the heart have a way of showing themselves. It was in the way they looked at each other when they thought no one was watching, a lingering glance that lasted a second too long. It was in the way their hands would accidentally touch, sending a jolt of electricity through them both. It was in the silence that fell between them, a silence filled with words they were too afraid to say. One evening, a terrible storm rolled through Gwari. The wind howled like a hungry wolf, and rain beat against the roof. The power went out, plunging the house into darkness. Mama Kure lit a few candles, their small flames dancing in the dark. Everyone was a little scared, but Samuel and Halima found comfort in each other. They sat close together on the floor mat, their shoulders touching. In the flickering candlelight, Halima looked at Samuel. She could see the worry in his eyes, but she could also see the strength she had always relied on. Without thinking, she reached out and took his hand. His hand was warm and strong. He looked down at their joined hands, then up at her face. In that quiet, stormy moment, the walls they had built around their hearts finally crumbled. "Halima," Samuel whispered, his voice barely audible above the rain. I think I feel something for you. Something more than a brother." They began a secret relationship, stealing moments whenever they could. A shared look across the dinner table, a quick touch of hands in a crowded market, a whispered word in the hallway. It was thrilling and terrifying. Their happiness was a fragile secret, a little candle flame they had to protect from the winds of the world. But there was a deeper shadow in the Kure family, a secret that even the children did not know. One night, long before Samuel and Halima confessed their love, Halima had woken up thirsty. As she tiptoed past her parents' room, she heard her father's voice, low and troubled. He was talking to Mama Kure. "I worry about them, my wife," Papa Kure had said. Samuel and Halima. Their bond, it is not ordinary. It is just like the old story, the one my grandfather told me about our family line, the curse of the twin souls. "Hush, my husband," Mama Kure had replied, her voice soft but firm. "Do not speak of such things. It is just children's love. They will grow up and grow apart. God will not allow such a thing to visit our home." Halima had not understood the words twin souls or curse. She only knew that the sound of her father's voice had sent a shiver of fear down her spine. She had quickly gotten her water and run back to bed, the strange words echoing in her mind. She never mentioned it to anyone, and soon she forgot all about it. The memory was buried, a seed of a secret waiting for the right time to sprout. Their secret love continued to grow in the shadows of the Kure household. They were careful, so very careful. But love, especially a love so intense and forbidden, is a fire that cannot be hidden forever. Eventually, its light will be seen. One hot afternoon, Papa and Mama Kure were out at the market, and their younger siblings were playing outside. Samuel and Halima found themselves alone in the house. The quiet house felt like their own little world. Overcome by their feelings, Samuel gently pulled Halima close. He looked into her eyes, and in them, he saw his whole world. He leaned in and kissed her. It was a soft, tender kiss, full of all the unspoken words and secret feelings they had hidden.
Samuel and Halima sprang apart, their hearts pounding with terror. They turned to see their mother standing in the doorway, her face a mask of horror. The warm, loving light in her eyes was gone, replaced by a storm of confusion, pain, and a terrible dawning understanding. The secret was out. Their world was about to end. The sound of the shattered pot still echoed in the silent room, long after the pieces had settled. For what felt like an eternity, nobody moved. Mama Kure stood frozen in the doorway, her face a canvas of disbelief and pain. Samuel and Halima stood apart, their moment of happiness now a source of deep shame and terror. The sweet scent of the spilled spices filled the air, a cruel reminder of the simple, happy life that had just been broken. Finally, Mama Kure found her voice. It was not a shout, but a trembling whisper, filled with a sorrow so deep it cut through the air. "Samuel, Halima, tell me my eyes are playing tricks on me." Samuel, his heart pounding like a drum, stepped forward. He had always been the protector, and even now, his first instinct was to shield Halima. "Mama, please," he began, his own voice unsteady. "Let us explain. It is not what you think." But it was exactly what she thought. Mama Kure's eyes, which had always looked at them with such love, were now filled with a horror he had never seen before. She shook her head slowly, as if trying to shake away the terrible image. "Explain? What is there to explain?" She looked from her son to her daughter, her gaze lingering on Halima, who was now crying silently, tears streaming down her face. "My own children, in my own house, an abomination." The word hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. Abomination. It was a word from the Holy Book, a word used by the elders to describe things that were against God and against nature. To hear it from their own mother's lips was like a physical blow. Mama Kure sank onto a nearby stool, covering her face with her hands. Her body shook with sobs. She did not scream or rage. Her quiet, broken weeping was far worse. It spoke of a heart that had been shattered just like the clay pot on the floor. Samuel and Halima stood helpless, the architects of her pain. They wanted to go to her, to comfort her, but they knew they were the last people on earth who could. They waited in that heavy, sorrowful silence for what felt like hours. The sun began to set, casting long shadows into the room. They heard the familiar sound of their father's footsteps outside. Papa Kure was home. He walked in, tired from his day's work, a small smile on his face. But the smile vanished when he saw the scene before him. His wife weeping on a stool, the shattered pot on the floor, and his two eldest children standing stiffly, their faces pale with fear. "My wife, what is it? What has happened here?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. Mama Kure lifted her head, her eyes red and swollen. She could not speak the words. She simply pointed a trembling finger at Samuel and Halima. "Ask them," she choked out. "Ask your children what devil has entered this house today." Papa Kure looked at Samuel, his eyes demanding an answer. Samuel lowered his head, unable to meet his father's gaze. It was a confession without words. A deep, heavy sigh escaped Papa Kure's lips. It was not a sigh of anger, but of a profound, soul-crushing disappointment. He walked over to a chair and sat down heavily, as if the weight of the world had suddenly fallen on his shoulders. He looked at his children, his face grim. "I feared this," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "I prayed to God that I was wrong, but in my heart, I feared this day would come." Halima looked up, confused. "Father, what do you mean?" Papa Kure looked at his wife, then back at his children. "You do not know the stories of our family, the old stories. My own grandfather told me. He said that in our bloodline, there is a mark. Once every few generations, two children are born with souls that are too close. He called it the curse of the twin souls. They are like one person living in two bodies. Their bond is so strong that the world cannot understand it. And it always, always ends in sorrow." "Has happened here?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. The forgotten words Halima had overheard years ago came rushing back to her. The curse of the twin souls. So this was it. This strange, powerful feeling between them was not just love. It was a curse, a story foretold by their ancestors. "It is not a curse, Papa," Samuel said, finding a sliver of courage. "It is love. I love Halima more than my own life. And she loves me." Papa Kure slammed his hand on the small wooden table beside him, making the candles jump. "Do not call it love," he roared, his quiet sorrow finally giving way to anger. "It is a sickness, a taboo. It will bring a curse upon this house, upon your brother and sister, upon this entire family for generations to come." The forgotten words Halima had overheard years ago came rushing back to her. The curse of the twin souls. So this was it. This strange, powerful feeling between them was not just love. It was a curse, a story foretold by their ancestors. "It is not a curse, Papa," Samuel said, finding a sliver of courage. "It is love. I love Halima more than my own life. And she loves me." Papa Kure slammed his hand on the small wooden table beside him, making the candles jump. "Do not call it love," he roared, his quiet sorrow finally giving way to anger. "It is a sickness, a taboo. It will bring a curse upon this house, upon your brother and sister, upon this entire family for generations to come." That night, the house was a tomb. No one ate, no one spoke. The younger children, Tunda and Aisha, sensed the heavy darkness and stayed quietly in their room, whispering to each other, wondering what their older siblings had done. The next evening, Papa Kure called a family meeting. It was just the four of them in the living room. He sat in his big chair, looking like a judge about to pass a sentence. Mama Kure sat beside him, her face still swollen from crying. "We have prayed and we have thought about this," Papa Kure began, his voice devoid of all warmth. "What you are doing is an insult to your family, a sin against God, and a defiance of our culture. It must stop. Today. But Papa, we cannot just stop our feelings, Halima pleaded, her voice a small whisper. We have tried. It is impossible. Nothing is impossible when you fear God, Mama Kura said sharply, speaking for the first time. You must repent. You must ask God for forgiveness. We will separate you. Samuel, you will go and live with your uncle in the city. Halima, you will stay here, and we will find a good, respectable man for you to marry. Quickly. This is the only way to clean this house of your sin. The plan was like a death sentence to them. Be separated. Marry other people. The thought was unbearable. It felt like being asked to cut off a part of their own body. Samuel stood up, his posture straight and defiant. He took Halima's hand, and she stood up with him. They faced their parents together, a united front. No, Samuel said, his voice clear and firm. We will not be separated. I will not marry anyone else, Halima added, her hand gripping Samuel's tightly. My heart belongs to him. Papa Kura stared at them, his face hardening into a mask of stone. He had offered them a way out, a path back to righteousness in his eyes, and they had rejected it. He saw it not as love, but as pure stubbornness and disobedience. I see, he said slowly, his voice dangerously calm. So you have made your choice. You choose this thing, over your family, over your God. He stood up, his tall frame seeming to fill the entire room. Then I have made my choice as well. If you will not be separated by choice, you will be separated from this family by force. As of this moment, you are no longer Kura. You are no longer my children. Mama Kura let out a strangled gasp. My husband, no! Be silent, woman, he commanded. The decision is made. They have brought this shame upon us, and they will not stay under this roof for another night to poison the rest of us. He pointed a finger towards the door. Pack a small bag. Take only what you need, and leave my house. Do not come back. Do not call our names. From this day forward, we have only 2 children. The words were final. There was no room for argument. Tears streamed down Halima's face as Samuel led her to their rooms. They moved like ghosts, packing a few clothes into a single bag. They could hear their mother's heart-wrenching sobs from the living room, a sound that would haunt them forever. When they were ready, they walked back to the living room. They stood before their parents for the last time. Halima looked at her mother, her heart aching, hoping for one last look of love, one sign of forgiveness. But Mama Kura could not look at her. She kept her face turned away, her shoulders shaking. Papa Kura stood by the open door, his face like a thundercloud. He did not say goodbye. He simply watched as his 2 children, the ones who had been like 2 peas in a pod, stepped out of the home they had known all their lives. They stepped out of the warm circle of family light and into the cold, dark, and uncertain night. The heavy wooden door closed behind them with a solid, final thud. The sound sealed their fate. They were alone now, cast out and disowned. All they had left in the entire world was each other. The night they were cast out from their home was the longest night of their lives. The door closing behind them was a sound of finality, the sound of their past being locked away forever. They walked through the quiet, sleeping streets of Gwari, with only a small bag in each other. The moon was a silent witness in the sky, watching over them. They were no longer the children of the respected Kura family. They were outcasts, with no home and no name. But in Samuel's hand, Halima's hand, was a warm and steady anchor. And in Halima's eyes, Samuel saw a reflection of his own strength and determination. They were afraid, yes, but they were not broken. After a few days of uncertainty, Samuel found them a place to live. It was a single, small room in a crowded compound on the other side of town. The walls were thin, the paint was peeling, and they had to share a bathroom and kitchen with 3 other families. It was nothing like the comfortable home they had grown up in. But when they closed the door to their little room, it became their palace. It was the first place in the world that was truly theirs, a sanctuary where their love did not have to hide in the shadows. For the next 2 years, they built a life together in that small room. Samuel found work as a labourer, doing any job he could find to put food on the table. It was hard, backbreaking work, but he never complained. He would come home each evening tired and covered in dust, and the sight of Halima waiting for him would wash all his weariness away. Halima, in turn, made their small room a home. She kept it spotlessly clean. She learned to cook delicious meals with the little money they had, and she filled the room with a warmth that had nothing to do with the hot Nigerian sun. She would listen to Samuel talk about his day. She would rub his tired shoulders, and she would tell him, "My love, one day, all this suffering will be over. God will see our hearts." They were poor in worldly things, but they were rich in love. They would share a single plate of rice and it would taste like a feast. They would sit together in the evenings, talking and laughing, their voices a quiet melody in the noisy compound. To them, they were not living in sin. They were simply husband and wife in their hearts, even if no pastor had blessed them and no family had approved. But the world outside their door was not so kind. The whispers followed them like a shadow. Their neighbours in the compound would stare at them. They would see them, a young man and woman living together, and they would see that they looked alike. The questions would start. "Are they related?" one woman would ask another at the shared water tap. "I heard they are brother and sister," another would reply, her voice a scandalised whisper. "From the Cure family that chased them away. It is an abomination." The landlord, a grumpy old man, would look at them with suspicion every time he collected the rent. Their old friends from Gwari would turn their heads and walk the other way if they saw them in the market. They were an island, the two of them, in a sea of judging eyes. The constant disapproval was like a slow poison. It did not kill their love, but it began to infect their happiness. Halima started to stay inside more, to avoid the stares and the whispers. Samuel could see the sadness creeping into her eyes, and it broke his heart. He felt the weight of their father's words, the talk of a curse. Were they truly cursed? Was he, by loving her, also causing her pain? One day, a woman from their old neighborhood, a kind church elder named Mama Chioma, came to visit them. She was a respected woman, and she had always been fond of them when they were children. She sat in their small room, looking around with sad eyes. "My children," she said, her voice gentle but firm, "I have come because I care for you. I hear the things people are saying. It is not good. You cannot continue like this. This living together, it is not right. It is a stain on your names." "But Mama, we love each other," Halima said softly, her eyes pleading. "We are not hurting anyone." "You are hurting yourselves," Mama Chioma insisted, "and you are hurting the name of your family. Listen to me. The world will never accept this. For your own good, for the sake of your future, you must live apart. Samuel, you are a strong young man. You can find a good wife. And Halima, you are a beautiful girl. I can introduce you to a respectable man. You must show everyone that you can live a normal life. This is the only way to silence the gossip and find peace." Her words were like stones, heavy and hard. They rejected them at first. The thought of separating was more painful than all the whispers and stares combined. But the seed of doubt had been planted. They began to argue, something they had never done before. The pressure from the outside world was seeping through the cracks of their small sanctuary. "Maybe she is right, Halima," Samuel said one night, his voice full of pain. "Look at you. You are afraid to go outside. I cannot find a better job because people know our story. Maybe I am ruining your life." "No," Halima cried, tears in her eyes. "You are my life. Without you, I have nothing. But what if this is the only way?" He pressed on, his heart breaking with every word. "What if we try? Just for a little while. We live apart. We try to be with other people. If we can prove to the world and to ourselves that we can do it, maybe the curse will be broken. Maybe then we can find happiness." It was a desperate plan, born of exhaustion and a deep desire to protect each other from the world's cruelty. They talked about it for many days and many nights. It was the hardest decision they had ever had to make. To save their love, they felt they had to let it go. To find peace together, they had to walk apart. And so, with tears and promises to never truly forget each other, they agreed to try. Mama Chioma was pleased. She found Samuel a room in a different part of the city, and true to her word, she introduced Halima to a man. His name was Mr. Adebayo. He was an older man who owned a small shop selling fabrics. He was wealthy by their standards, and he was looking for a young, beautiful wife. When he saw Halima, he was instantly charmed. He promised to take care of her, to give her a good life, a life free from poverty and scorn. At the same time, Samuel, in his new, lonely room, tried to move on. He started attending a local church, where he met a young woman named Funke. She was quiet and kind, with a gentle smile. She liked Samuel and made it clear she was interested in him. Pushed by the need to fulfill his promise, Samuel started spending time with her. The day came for Halima to move into Mr. Adebayo's house. Samuel came to say goodbye. They stood outside the compound, the place that had been their whole world. "You will be happy," Samuel said, his voice thick with unshed tears. "He will take care of you. And you will find peace," Halima whispered back, her heart feeling like it was being torn in two. "This is for the best." They looked at each other one last time, a silent promise passing between them. Then, Halima turned and walked away, towards a new life with a man she did not love. Samuel watched her go, a cold, empty feeling spreading through his chest. He then turned and walked in the opposite direction, towards a future that felt just as empty. They were following the world's rules now, but in their hearts, they both knew they were walking away from the only true happiness they had ever known. For 6 months, Samuel and Halima lived in their separate worlds, trying to build the normal lives that everyone said they should have. But it was like trying to plant a flower in a desert. Nothing grew. There was no joy, no color, no life. Halima's new home was a large, spacious house, much bigger than the single room she had shared with Samuel. Mr. Adebayo bought her beautiful clothes, expensive jewelry, and all the food she could eat. On the outside, it looked like she had everything a young woman could want. But inside, the big house felt like a cold, empty prison. Mr. Adebayo was not a cruel man, but he was a man of tradition and control. He saw Halima not as a partner, but as a possession, a beautiful thing to be shown off to his friends. He wanted her to be quiet and obedient. He did not care about her thoughts or her feelings. He never asked her about her dreams or what her pain, her sadness, which she tried to hide behind a polite smile, only irritated him. "Why do you always look so sad?" he would demand after a long day at his shop. "I have given you everything. A fine house, good food, beautiful clothes. Most women would be grateful. What more do you want?" She could never tell him the truth. How could she explain that her heart was in another part of the city, in a small, dusty room, with the man she truly loved? The loneliness was a constant ache in her chest. She would lie awake at night in the big, comfortable bed, staring into the darkness, her mind filled with memories of Samuel. She remembered his laughter, the way he would hold her hand, the feeling of safety she felt in his arms. Mr. Adebayo's house had high walls and a strong gate, but Halima had never felt more unsafe and alone in her life. Sometimes, the emptiness would turn into a quiet despair. Mr. Adebayo's friends would visit, their wives dripping with gold, and they would look at Halima with a mixture of pity and suspicion. They all knew her story, the scandal that had followed her from Gwari. She was the girl who had lived with her brother. To them, she would always be stained, no matter how many fine clothes Mr. Adebayo bought her. The whispers she had tried to escape had followed her into this new life, becoming a permanent part of her identity. Meanwhile, Samuel's life was just as hollow. He tried his best with Funka. He took her for walks. He went to church with her. He listened to her talk about her day. Funka was a good woman. She was patient and kind. She saw the deep sadness in Samuel's eyes and thought she could be the one to heal it. She cooked for him. She prayed for him. And she offered him a simple, uncomplicated love. But Samuel's heart was a locked room, and only Halima had the key. He would look at Funka and try to feel something, but all he could see was Halima's face. He would hear Funka laugh, but all he could hear was the echo of Halima's voice. He felt guilty for leading this good woman on, for being unable to return the affection she so freely gave. "You are a good man, Samuel," Funka told him one evening as they sat outside his small room. "But you are not here. Your body is here with me, but your spirit is somewhere else. What is it that haunts you so?" Samuel could not answer. He just looked away, the weight of his secret pressing down on him. Living apart from Halima had not brought him peace. It had only shown him how deep and essential his love for her was. It was not a choice, it was a part of who he was. Trying to love someone else felt like a lie. Every day was a performance, and he was getting tired of the act. He missed the easy comfort, the deep understanding, the feeling of being completely and truly himself that he only had with Halima. The breaking point came after 6 long months. Halima was in the market one day, buying vegetables for Mr. Adebayo's dinner. She saw a young couple walking hand in hand, laughing and sharing a joke. They did not have much. Their clothes were simple, but their happiness was so bright it was almost blinding. A wave of unbearable longing washed over Halima. She wanted that. Not the big house or the fine clothes, but that simple, profound joy of being with the one person who understood her soul. That night, she could not pretend anymore. Mr. Adebayo came home angry, complaining about a bad day at his shop. He took his frustration out on her, shouting at her for some small mistake she had made with his dinner. The words were harsh and unfair, and in that moment, all the pain and loneliness of the past months boiled over. She ran to her room, locked the door, and for the first time, she allowed herself to truly break. She cried for her lost love, for her lost family, and for the life she was being forced to live. At the same time, miles away, Samuel was sitting with Funk. She had made a special meal for him. She looked at him with hopeful eyes, waiting for him to say something, to give her some sign that he was starting to care for her. But Samuel felt nothing but a deep, aching void. He looked at this kind woman and knew he was being cruel to her by staying. He could not give her the love she deserved. He finally found the courage to speak the truth, or at least a part of it. "Funky," he said, his voice quiet. "I cannot do this. You are a wonderful woman. You deserve a man who can give you his whole heart. And my heart is not mine to give." Funka's face fell, but she nodded slowly, a sad understanding in her eyes. "I knew it," she whispered. "I always knew. I hope one day you find what you are looking for, Samuel." That night, Samuel could not sleep. He paced his small room, his mind racing. This experiment had failed. It had only brought pain to everyone involved. He had hurt Funke, and he knew deep in his bones that Halima could not be happy either. They had followed the world's advice, and it had led them to a dead end. They had tried to walk apart, but it was clear that their paths were always meant to be one. He could not wait any longer. The next morning, he found a way to get a message to Halima through a market woman he trusted. The message was simple. Meet me by the old mango tree in Gwari. Tonight, that evening, Halima lied to Mr. Adebayo, saying she was going to visit a sick friend. Her heart pounded with fear and excitement as she made her way back to the neighborhood she had been cast out of. Under the cover of darkness, she slipped into her old family yard and went to the big mango tree, the place where their childhood love had first taken root. A few minutes later, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Samuel. They stood there for a moment, just looking at each other. They had been apart for only 6 months, but it felt like a lifetime. They could see the pain and hardship of those months etched on each other's faces. "Samuel," Halima whispered, her voice breaking. "Halima," he said, his own voice thick with emotion. And then they were in each other's arms, holding on as if they were drowning and the other was the only thing that could save them. All the loneliness, all the sadness, all the pretense of the last 6 months melted away in that embrace. "I was wrong," Samuel said, his face buried in her hair. "So wrong. Living without you is not living at all. I would rather face the whole world's anger with you by my side than have a peaceful life without you." "I cannot do it anymore, Samuel," Halima cried, her tears soaking his shirt. "I am so unhappy. That house is not a home. He is not my husband. You are. You have always been." They stood under the mango tree, the tree that had witnessed the birth of their love, and made a new vow. They would not be separated again. Not by their family, not by society, not by anyone. They had tried to live by the world's rules, and it had almost destroyed them. From now on, they would live by the rules of their own hearts. Their happiness, they now realized, was worth any price. They would face whatever came next, but they would face it together. That night, under the silent branches of the mango tree, Samuel and Halima made their decision. There would be no more hiding, no more pretending, and no more separations. They had tasted life apart, and it was a bitter meal. Together, they had very little, but they had everything that mattered. Halima went back to Mr. Adebayo's house one last time. She did not sneak out in the middle of the night like a thief. She waited until the morning. With a courage she did not know she possessed, she stood before the older man and told him the truth. "I cannot be your wife," she said, her voice clear and steady. "My heart belongs to someone else. I am grateful for the home you gave me, but it is not my home. I am leaving." Mr. Adebayo was furious. He shouted and called her ungrateful, a woman of no shame. His words were like sharp stones, but Halima did not flinch. She had already endured the world's judgment. One more man's anger could not break her. She left behind the beautiful clothes and the jewelry, taking only the small bag she had arrived with. She walked out of the big, cold house and did not look back. Samuel was waiting for her. He had also packed his few belongings, leaving the room where he had known such loneliness. When Halima appeared, a radiant smile on her face, he felt a surge of pride and love so powerful, it took his breath away. They were free. They went back to the only place they could afford, the small, single room in the crowded compound. To the neighbors who had gossiped about them, their reunion was a fresh scandal. The whispers started again, louder this time. They tried to be decent, but the devil in their blood was too strong, they would say. But Samuel and Halima no longer cared. They had learned a valuable lesson. The opinions of others could not keep them warm at night, or fill the emptiness in their souls. Only their love could do that. They resumed their simple life, but this time something was different. The doubt was gone. The shame was gone. In its place was a quiet, unshakable confidence. They had been tested by the world and had come out stronger. Their love was no longer a secret to be hidden, but a truth to be lived, openly and without apology. Of course, their life was not easy. They were still poor. Samuel's search for better work was often met with closed doors once people learned their story. They were still outcasts, a strange and forbidden couple that most people chose to avoid. The daily bullying continued, sometimes in the form of harsh words, other times in the coldness of being ignored. They were labeled as sinners, as shameless, as people who had defied God and culture. But they had each other, and that made all the difference. When the world was cruel, Samuel would hold Halima and say, "Let them talk. Their words are just wind. What we have is real." When they were down to their last few coins, Halima would cook a simple meal and say, "As long as we share this plate, my king, we are richer than anyone." They started to dream of the future again, a future they would build on their own terms. "One day we will get married," Samuel said one evening as they sat outside their room, watching the stars appear in the dark sky. "I know the law might not allow it easily, but we will find a way. I want the world to know you are my wife." Halima leaned her head on his shoulder. "And we will have children," she added, her voice soft but full of hope. "Maybe 5 of them. We will raise them in a house filled with so much love that they will never feel the coldness of the world." It was a beautiful dream, one that seemed impossible given their situation. But they held onto it tightly. They believed in the power of their love and in their own hard work. Samuel started a small business, repairing shoes and sandals. It was humble work, but it was his own. Halima helped him, and slowly, very slowly, they began to save a little money. One day, they heard news from Gwari. Their younger sister, Aisha, was getting married. They were not invited to the wedding, of course. To their family, they were still dead. But on the day of the ceremony, they stood on a dusty road far from the celebration, just to catch a glimpse. They saw their parents, looking older and more tired than they remembered. They saw their mother smile at Aisha, but they thought they could see a deep sadness lingering in her eyes. "Do you think they will ever forgive us?" Halima asked, a tear rolling down her cheek. Samuel put his arm around her. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I believe we are making them proud, even if they cannot see it now. We are surviving. We are building a life. We are happy. What more can a parent truly want for their child?" He truly believed it. He believed that their love, as unconventional and forbidden as it was a testament to strength and resilience. They had been told their love was wrong, a curse, an abomination. They had been abandoned by everyone they knew, but they had refused to be broken. They had stood by their own hearts, and in doing so, they had found a profound and unshakable peace. To the outside world, their story was a cautionary tale, a scandal, a tragedy. But to Samuel and Halima, it was a love story. It was a story of 2 souls who were so deeply connected that not even the laws of family, culture, and society could keep them apart. They believed that their journey was a lesson for the world, a lesson that love cannot be judged or dictated by outdated rules. It simply is. They often talked about the world owing them an apology, not out of arrogance, but out of a simple, honest belief that they had been wronged. "Why is it so hard for people to understand?" Samuel would ask. "We love each other. We take care of each other. We are not hurting anyone. There is nothing complicated about it. We have the right to choose our own happiness, just like everyone else years past." Their little shoe repair business grew. They were still not rich, but they had enough. They were still the subject of gossip, but they had learned to build a wall of peace around their small home. They were still Samuel and Halima, the siblings who did the unthinkable. But they were also Samuel and Halima, the two people who had faced down the entire world and won. They were a testament to the idea that sometimes the heart knows a truth that the rest of the world is not yet ready to hear. And in their small room, in their simple life, they lived out that truth every single day. Their love a quiet but defiant flame that no one could ever extinguish.